I'm very happy to have another expert with us. He's an engineer who is working like an economist. Wow, that's high praise for economics. An engineer who's working like an economist in energy and climate change. We have today with us Mohit Chhabra. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Mohit.
Hello, good evening. I'm Mohit. As Subodh said, I am an engineer by training, but I should say I'm an engineer mostly because I was good at math. And growing up in India, that's kind of what you're channeled toward. And when I started working in my professional career, I realized I was better and more naturally inclined on subjects related to economics. And I've been working with the Natural Resources Defense Council. It's a think tank and nonprofit as a clean energy economist. And the goal really that I'm working toward is it's imperative that climate change is here and we solve it. So how do we solve it in a manner that keeps costs under control, is cost effective, and it's equitable? And that's where the economics part and the engineering part come together.
Okay.
So the topic today is electricity pricing for making progress on climate change to ensure that electric bills are progressive or equitably distributed, and also for economic efficiency, right? So those are the three goals we're trying to solve here. So California has been one of the leading states in fighting climate change, and that's where most of my work is. So I'm going to use California as an example. And a brief history of how people made electric rates or designed electric rates. So what most people in the US, when they pay their electric bill, they're paying for two things. They're paying for being connected to a grid and someone maintaining and building that out. And then they're also paying for all the energy that's generated and delivered to them. And there's a third thing that's becoming more and more common is they're paying for social policy goals costs. So when there's a climate policy that orders someone who's serving you electricity to serve you clean energy or run certain programs, that's all built into your bill. So those are three things roughly people pay for. Now, for economic efficiency, you'd pay a fixed charge just for costs of the grid that don't change with how much you use it. So a lot of the poles and wires, maintaining them, maintaining the lines, in lots of parts of the US, lines are being undergrounded to ensure against wildfires. All of those are fixed costs. And whether you use 10% more, 20% more, or less, those won't change. And then the cost to generate the electricity, those are variable costs, right? Those are the wholesale prices that a utility or someone else pays when they buy more electricity and deliver it to you. So ideally, there'd be a two-part rate. However, we haven't done that in most of this country, especially in California. We've charged customers solely on the basis of how much they use. And that's been for two reasons. The first is back when we had a lot of renewable electricity on the grid.
Can I just interrupt and put it in
Please do.
simple language? The fixed charge is your membership of Costco or Amazon. You pay it per year, which means per month, right?
Sure.
Whether you buy or you don't buy, you pay the same amount.
Fixed charge is your membership to a gym or to
Right. Or whatever, right. And
there are
then,
a lot of services.
right, they have a fixed charge. And most people don't go to gyms. So the point there is just to collect the money. But most people do buy from Costco and Amazon. So you pay a fee to be part of the system. And then you pay it for the thing that you buy.
Right.
That's sort of, I think it may be easier for people to understand that that's what.
Or your Amazon Prime membership.
Yeah, Amazon Prime membership.
That's a really good example.
Yeah, okay, fine. All
Yeah,
right.
you pay a basic fee for then setting up all the processes. And then when you buy stuff, you just pay for that in addition.
Right.
Similarly, with the utility, you could pay a fee for the upkeep of the system, and then you buy more electricity, you pay just for that.
Right.
So coming back to the example of California, the reason why, even though grid costs are distributed as such, people only paid on the basis of how much they use was to encourage energy efficiency and conservation, and for simplicity, but mostly to encourage energy efficiency. The reason being that before the grid had a lot of clean energy resources, it was environmentally prudent to use just as much as you need. So you want to give a strong signal for efficiency. The second reason is most of the data showed that usage is somewhat correlated to income. So generally, wealthier people use more. And recently, those two trends have broken down. So there's a reason to rethink that. So what happens when there's more and more clean energy and renewable energy on the grid is that the operating costs of renewables are near zero. So once you have a solar panel installed or a wind turbine installed, you don't need to spend much more money to operate them. So the costs of generating electricity go down as the grid gets cleaner. And so do the cost of environmental externalities, all the pollution that reduces too as the grid gets cleaner. So there is less reason to overcharge people and encourage efficiency and conservation. And what we really want people to do now.
Mohit, just a second. Let me put you on pause. We have a family issue. Okay, so I've taken out the pause, and Mohit, please continue.
Another consideration and new development is a big part of fighting climate change, reducing pollution, is try to get people to drive electric cars. And one big reason people would electrify or drive electric cars is to save money on their fuel. If it's more expensive to operate a car on electricity than petrol or gasoline, you're less likely to do it. You don't need to do it for other reasons. And in general, as the grid gets cleaner, in economist speak, the social marginal costs of generation decrease. So it's fine to use more. It's efficient to use more when the grid is clean. So having no fixed charges on rates are not only working at cross purposes with environmental outcomes, they're also economically less and less efficient. Now, talking about impact on people across the income spectrum, in California especially, a lot of the wealthier people live in the coastal areas, which are pretty moderate. And less wealthy people live inland, which are really hot and have more extreme weather. So generally, when you collect all costs of the grid solely based on usage, you collect more money from people who live inland, who tend to be less wealthy. So when we look at the recent data in California of across income spectrums, how much do people pay towards the fixed costs of the grid? It's not progressive at all. There's this upward slope. Richer people pay slightly more because they have bigger homes sometimes, but it's much flatter than we'd expected. So the problem we're confronting is threefold. Rates are inefficient, economically speaking. They give the wrong environmental signals, and their impacts are inequitable. So one proposed solution is to reform rates to have a fixed charge so you can reduce the cost people pay for using electricity. So if you have a fixed charge, then some of the costs that people pay based on usage decrease because you're now collecting them on a monthly charge. So you get better incentives on what electricity actually costs the society to generate and distribute. And then you can vary it with time. So when electricity is cleaner, you pay less and so on. The second part is you take that fixed charge and you could do some rough income graduation to it. Households that are in assistance programs you can charge them less money. So that's a big part of the policy puzzle that I'm working towards.
Okay.
And it brings, there's a larger point to be made here is if we are to fight climate change, the engine of climate change is clean electricity, of fighting climate change is clean electricity, getting more and more people on clean electricity. So it's really important to make sure electricity is cheaper compared to the alternative fuels and cheaper in itself in the absolute. Because you don't, people's willingness to take part in a movement to fight climate change, their willingness will reduce if their bills get untenable. So we have to think about appropriate ways of funding climate mitigation and progressive ways of funding. And the most progressive way of funding additional requirements to fight climate change really is the state budget, which comes from taxes.
Okay, fair enough. So let's continue.
So where does the resistance to something like this come from? The resistance to something like this comes from people who are most likely to lose out with the transition. And that's the case with any big policy change. So in California, unfortunately, it's wealthier people who live out on the coast who might see a fixed charge and might see their bills go up. And especially it's households that have rooftop solar installed. And as an environmental organization, we think, and I think rooftop solar is a good thing, but you have to confront the question, how much should you pay to subsidize it and who bears the costs? And currently in California, depending on where you are, around 20% of a customer's bill goes to subsidizing other customers' rooftop solar, right? And that's a little too high. So there's a lot of resistance, mostly from the industry who sell products to help customers save energy costs. Because if you reduce the rate to consume electricity, you also reduce the incentive to buy other things. And that's where a big resistance coming from. A lot of other resistance is from just people averse to change, people suspicious of utilities. So I'm working through that with my team, and I'll be doing that for the next year.
Looking to testify before the regulatory commission, or
So I've already done so. So I developed a proposal based on California's policy priorities and just the environmental economics of the electric grid. And I put it in front of the commission. And there was back and forth after my testimony. And we're expecting them to come up with a proposed decision by the end of this month.
okay. Just for those who are not perhaps so familiar with this, the regulatory proceedings are legal. They are not technical, they are not economic, they are not social. In the end, they are legal. And the whole discussion about these things is, in the end, legal. You have to work through lawyers and everything. So it's a very complicated process. You have to go through the lawyers and you have a lot of evidence and data and stuff like that. So for those of you who don't know, testifying before a regulatory commission is an awesome burden and well paid. Maybe Mohit doesn't get that well paid. I don't know.
Yeah, because I work for a nonprofit, but
Yeah.
I was the technical expert who testified.
Okay.
And just as other people who watch this for you, who work on economics, climate change, sort of the big question that confronts us, and that's really hard to solve is, we all know if you run a clean economy based on renewable energy, clean energy, in the long term, you have lower costs, both societal, because you mitigate climate change, pollution, and the operating costs of renewables are lower once you install them, right?
Yeah.
The short term, their cost to be incurred.
Yeah.
So you you have to go through some pain to get to a better place.
Yeah.
Now, what's the best mechanism to fund our short-term asks to make sure that things stay progressive? And this whole movement of restructuring the economy to be a clean economy is also a great opportunity for making things fairer and more progressive, right? So that's sort of the challenge that confronts us. And it's not an easy problem. There are hard decisions to be made everywhere.
That is for sure. It's not easy at all because you are dealing with technical, social, economic aspects of everything. And you can't just arbitrarily decide on one set of parameters or metrics. It's just very complicated. And there'll always be somebody who will oppose you, right? So
And
that's,
politics plays a big role in it.
that's the way regulatory system works in the US, that somebody opposes you always. Okay, so it's a tough business. Okay, anyway, let's continue.
So this is the bulk of what I had to share
Okay.
for my expert topic. Is the bigger problem really is we know we need to fight back against climate change, reduce pollution, and as someone who's grew up in New Delhi, just how harmful local pollution can be is very clear to me. Right, I've seen it.
You know,
When I was
my
a river.
my doctor refused to let me go to New Delhi. She,
Yeah,
this time, she said, "There's no way you are going to New Delhi." So fortunately, I didn't suffer the pollution, but she told me bluntly, "You are not going there." So it's that bad.
and traveling around India, it's easy to pick out, especially in the winter, people who are from New Delhi because they have a specific cough
Yeah,
that comes with just staying in New Delhi for.
yeah,
And when I was growing up, the river that goes through New Delhi, Yamuna, was a river.
right,
And by the time I was in high school, it wasn't a river anymore.
right.
It's mostly like sewage
Yeah,
in large part,
yeah,
right? So it's pretty clear to me we need to do that. However, life is pretty hard, and we want to make sure that the costs that people bear are reasonable and manageable. And if you are spending more to solve a problem, that money's got to come from somewhere.
yes, that
And
is
that's
true.
where politics comes in a lot. The government has to have willingness to fund these things from the proper mechanism. What happened in California is it was easy to fund a lot of this thing through electric rates.
Right.
Now we're at a place where electricity is so expensive that it's holding the transition back.
Yeah,
And to the extent this problem persists in California, other states in the US will point at California and say, this is what happens when you go aggressive on trying to fight climate change. So we need to solve this as soon as possible.
yeah, I agree. Because the rates are high and there's no scope for increasing anything anymore, right? It's just not there
Yeah,
politically. The
I
commission
think
won't approve.
they're 2 to 3 times as high as those in New York right now.
Yes, it's very, very high. Okay. All right. That's good. All right. So you are in the middle of a huge intellectual, practical battle. Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us?
Um, I guess a lesson I've learned working through this is, and this is a lesson I've learned from just my self-study of economics, which I think I told you, it's in large part due to the generous faculty at University of California that just give me their teaching material and work with me after hours, is that there are no shortcuts to doing things the right way,
Okay.
right? Uh, Market society is dynamic. And you might think you have a smart answer today,
Yeah.
but 5 or 6 years will come back to haunt you if you don't do
Yeah.
it. And to the extent we work with incentives, subsidies, we need to be transparent.
Yeah.
Bringing them into the prices for things
Yeah.
always creates distortions
Yeah.
and causes more heartache in the future.
Yeah.
And doing something is much harder than doing it right the first time.
Okay. And it's always good to be right the first time.
And it might be harder if you do it that way, but it'll pay off over time.
Okay, let me ask you your views on two issues. One is real-time pricing, and the other is net metering.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions on them?
No, just talk.
Okay. So real-time pricing, that would be the most efficient way to do things. And the theory is that if you look at the electric grid, the different parts of the grid that have different capacity, different amounts of congestion, and consuming or not consuming electricity is worth different at different times of the day and different parts of the grid, right? And that would, if you were to price electricity that way and people were to be able to respond to it, you would get efficient outcomes.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of problems, real barriers to getting to that ideal place. The first is not everybody wants to look at the price of electricity before turning their toaster on or like their television on or their heater on, right? Like people need predictable signals. Unless you find a way to automate appliances somehow, people need predictable signals.
Okay.
So that takes you 1 degree away from your ideal. And
Okay.
then and then implementing this isn't easy as well, right? You want smart infrastructure deployed at scale as well. So that takes you like 2 degrees away from getting to that ideal.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to start with what would a perfect system with dynamically priced electricity look like?
Yeah.
Then layer in real world considerations of what can people work with, respond to, and what you can implement.
Yeah.
And then go from there to come up with a rate or a tariff that has enough of the good of a dynamic single inlet, but is also easily understandable and implementable at scale.
Okay. As a very simple layman, don't you think that Uber's already put in surge pricing, which is a form of real-time pricing, and
Right.
people don't seem to be fighting it? And the tolls, I think in California, are variable.
Yeah.
Okay, so they
So,
are also a form of real-time pricing. So it's not like 30 years ago where this was just in a textbook.
right.
We
But
have people who are paying variable tolls, and we have people who are paying variable prices for transport.
right. So what's the difference?
So what's the difference? That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah. So here's the difference. You're talking about discrete purchases that people make for a specific need, maybe once a day. Some people make that once a week. Some people make it twice a day.
Okay.
Right? And you're talking about places where perfect information is possible. With your smartphone, you select a Uber cab, it tells you, gives you your options, and you make a decision. And there's a lot of flexibility. The elasticity of supply and demand are very different in both
Yeah.
cases, right? There's a lot more flexibility. You could delay yourself by 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if sometimes when you take an Uber. You could book in advance. Not all of that is available or possible in the residential, especially electricity sector. You could do some of that in the industrial sector, where they're more sophisticated consumers, they have storage, computerized systems. It's more possible there. But for households, um, there's a lot of behavioral inertia. And
Okay.
you could get there. That's why I said you could get there when you have automated appliances,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's the big difference.
Okay.
Elasticity of supply.
Honestly, I think it's a attitude or an understanding that's held over from the past. I think today's consumers are much more up with it. The regulators don't have the guts because
Mhm.
of the opposition of some vocal people. But otherwise, I think 30 years ago, yes, nobody had heard of it, nobody knew about it. But today, you're saying there's an app and this and that. Well, there can be an app for anything. I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't
like,
disagree with you. Just think
yeah, so
through
we can have
how
an
many
app.
people, how many people will care enough to respond to it, And also
Well,
think
they will
through,
soon learn their lesson.
yeah, also think through the cost of
That's
implementation.
a number of people who will not respond to it. I mean, everybody learns a lesson by a high price surcharge. There's a lot of discussion the other day in the Wall Street Journal about massive surcharges when you take an Uber to the airport.
Right.
And they publish that stuff. People read it. Now, the average person doesn't read it. They don't read the Wall Street Journal and they don't know. But today, I think knowledge spreads so much faster. Anyway, it's not my place to talk here. I want to hear from you.
It's fine. It's good to hear your views. And
No, 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 no.
I,
It's
I,
I'm just decided as of today that I will talk a bit more, but not much more, because I don't want to waste your time and have me talk, because once I start, I may not stop.
right. I agree that things would be better off if we could implement it. I was trying to outlay just the barriers, right? And you just have to
Okay,
think
fine.
through
All right. So let's
the
go.
cost, the cost effectiveness of implementing something like this,
Okay,
right?
let's shift to
Yeah.
net metering.
Um, so net metering in the simplest form is if you have a solar panel on your roof, your meter spins the other way when the panel generates electricity. And at the end of the month, you get a bill
Now,
that's
only when you sell it to the grid, not when it generates electricity.
when you generate electricity and you consume it at home, you don't buy electricity from the grid.
Right. So the
Or you
meter doesn't
defer,
run.
so meter doesn't spin, but you defer purchases.
Right.
And when you export it, the meter spins the other way.
Right.
Right. So what that it's a pretty simple way to incentivize rooftop solar and push it forward. And it worked. People like it. It worked in California, especially in a few other states. In the Northeast, it's worked pretty well. The issue is that the value of rooftop solar, including its clean value, is not the same as the price for electricity that most people pay.
Okay.
So again, if you had a two-part tariff that had a fixed charge for your fixed cost of the grid and had a variable charge for what it actually costs to generate, net metering would work just fine.
Yeah.
Because then you save money based on the avoided value of electricity you don't consume or you export.
Yeah.
The problem really happens is when you don't have a fixed charge. It's a rate design issue.
Okay.
So in California, for example, we've got fixed charge, and every year rates have gone up, right, with inflation and for other reasons. On the other hand, we have more and more solar on the grid, and every year the cost of solar electricity goes down. But with net metering, you pay more every year for the same thing, right? So it started to work at cost purposes. So it's fine as a simple tool to encourage it, but at some point in time, you have to have an off ramp and think of a more accurate compensation mechanism.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to add here?
No, I think that covered it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mohit. That was a very interesting talk. A bit technical, no doubt. Sorry, it's a bit technical, no doubt, but still pretty easily explained and directly put in simple language rather than jargon. And I'm glad you are here. And I know you were pissed off by Dr. Faruqi's Vidped, but I
It's
think he's
fine.
an industry expert, right?
Um,
Or I'm not quite sure where he is, but
I don't know. It's fine to disagree, I think. I don't get angry about these things. It's fine to disagree about opinions and in the bottom line, we all need to do our best and put our arguments forth so that decision makers can make the best decision, right? That's where we want to get to.
he used to work for the Brattle Group,
Yes.
and the Brattle Group is not like a place with a very strong sense of view. I think they just do the analysis, but anyway, that's
Right.
what triggered this, right?
Yeah. And I work a lot with the Energy Institute at Haas, along with them to develop policy proposals and think through stuff. And for whatever reason, Dr. Faruqi, I don't quite understand why he has landed at his positions, but here we are.
Okay, all right, good. So let's end it here today.
And
I will try to post your
and I take your arguments about the virtues of dynamic pricing to heart. I agree with you. That's the best way to do things. We're pretty far away from it. We need to get people along.
Okay, all right, wonderful. All right, so let's end it here today. We'll see you maybe 1 year from now where you are, what you have achieved in terms of fighting climate change. So let's end it here, okay? Bye, everybody. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon.